Hello, my name is Jason Dennis and I'm with the Fire Department. I'm here today to talk to you about Wildland Urban Interface and Fire. Uh, Thank you very much for inviting me out today. I understand that your time is precious. This is just a quick, brief overview of some key points to take home to start you on the process of getting your home safe in case of a wildfire. What I want to talk today about is three major points: preparing before the fire, practicing what to do in the event of a fire, and actually putting your plan into action when a fire occurs. We like the simple things in the fire service, so we've actually broken that down into three simple words: ready, set, go. I'd like to talk about a case study back from 1991 real quick to highlight some of the points as we go through today.
5 years of drought and just the right weather conditions today combined to feed an explosion of fire. The biggest firestorm to hit the East Bay in memory. Pushed by 30-mile-an-hour winds, flames swept down along the Oakland-Berkeley hills, destroying everything in its path. 5 people died when the fast-moving flames consumed one home so fast the occupants didn't have a chance to escape. 5 years of drought and just the right weather conditions today combined to feed an explosion of fire. The biggest firestorm to hit the East Bay in memory. Pushed by 30-mile-an-hour winds, flames swept down along the Oakland-Berkeley hills, destroying everything in its path. 5 people died when the fast-moving flames consumed one home so fast the occupants didn't have a chance to escape. A 6th death was reported just a little while ago. There are reports of as many as 10 dead. An Oakland battalion chief is among the dead.
It began as a grass fire around noon on Saturday. There were 12 engine companies and 3 trucks on the scene. A California Department of Forestry helicopter dropped 500 gallons of water on it. The fire appeared to be out. What you are looking at is ground zero, 1 hour before the conflagration. Everything looks under control. At the lower end of the canyon, firefighters were also working on a hot spot.
It was around that same time that we had the gust of winds that came down through the Santa Anas. It blew fire outside of the perimeter into dry brush, and at that point the fire just took off.
This is the fire only seconds after it began to take off. Winds were gusting 25 miles an hour, and as they blew, the fire roared. This was the first home to go. It is on Buckingham Boulevard. From this point, the fire could not be stopped.
We looked up and there was the Parkwood apartments. This was about 12:15. It was a very frightening sight. It was eerie.
From that Oakland Hills fire in 1991, these are just a few of the lessons learned. The reason there's some lessons to be learned here, there was 3,000 houses lost and 25 lives lost during that event. So when they look at the lessons learned, the clearing of brush, the use of fire-resistant building materials, the adequate access roadways for emergency vehicles in and for residents to evacuate are very important. On the fire side, we also learned a few things with this lessons learned. This is the basis for mutual aid agreements, communicating better. Firefighters now get cross-trained in wildland firefighting, and this built the base for an incident command system that we use in all of the fire service when dealing with big and small events. As we progress in the next few minutes, I just want to touch on these are the two major programs, FireWise and Ready, Set, Go, that we use across the nation. National Fire Protection Association, International Association of Fire Chiefs both have these programs that are easily manipulated and massaged to fit large communities, small communities, individual homes. All right, so let's get into the Ready, Set, Go by tackling ready. Probably the biggest chunk of the whole aspect here. This is the one that's preparing the house, and we're preparing the house long before the fire ever gets there, months ahead, not just hours or minutes ahead, but months ahead, to be safe in case of the fire. And we'll break that ready part down into 3 big parts. Let's talk about defensible space, fire safe construction measures, and emergency responder access. When I say defensible space, some of you probably quickly pop up with castles and moats, parapets. But when we talk about defensible space, we're talking about, is there an area that we can keep the fire away from the house so that it doesn't burn the house down? So you look at these two pictures, is there a good defensible space, or does it look like if there was a fire, it could easily go through these two houses? So let me go to the next slide and we'll talk about that. Here is an enlarged picture of one of those two houses. And what I've done here is I've circled the happy little trees here that we probably want to either trim back, remove from the area, or at least clean up and pull away from the house. We don't want branches overhanging. We don't want vegetation right up against the house. If we do like the vegetation against the house, we need to make sure that there's no dead vegetation underneath it that would provide access for the fire to climb up into the house itself. And here's a really good diagram of the defensible space in two phases. Phase 1 being a 30-foot perimeter around the house, and then 2 being 70 feet. And this also then has some particulars, recommendations for trimming. We're not advocating that you go through and clear cut your house 100 yards out in all directions and pave it, but there are some measures that you can take to offer that protection to your house and make it defensible from a fire that's approaching upon it. The second point in the ready part that I want to talk about is that fire safe construction. Now, unless you're in the construction business, if I say cement impregnated siding or Class A roofing materials, you probably don't know what I'm talking about. So a way I like to remember this is that construction material woodpecker proof? If it's not woodpecker proof, let's say you have a deck that is this beautiful cedar and you don't necessarily want to pull it out and replace it with a synthetic, can you do stuff to that deck so that a woodpecker wouldn't get up underneath it? And the woodpecker here being a euphemism for a fire ember or a fire brand that could get underneath your deck up against your siding and cause it to catch on fire. One more point I want to make about the ready part of the Ready, Set, Go is that emergency responder access. I've spent many years of my career riding on both a fire engine and an ambulance in the rural parts of Oregon. And what I notice is if we can't see your address along the country road, or I can't get down your driveway once I've found your address, it really makes it hard for me to come down there and provide your emergency services. So we're looking at, 12 to 15 feet wide to 15 feet tall clearance for your driveway. And your access part where your driveway comes off the street, we need that marked with an address marker, preferably something that is reflective so that we can also see it at night. Let's talk about the set of the Ready, Set, Go for a moment. And this is being aware of what's occurring when the fire starts. What's the situation? This is a good time when you look at, remember what your exit routes are, preferably 2 of them out of the area. Gather information regarding the situation from social media, from the news, from neighbors, from your local fire jurisdiction. And here's just a quick list of things that really help give your home a fighting chance of survival when you do wind up leaving your house because the fire is getting close and you're evacuating. And now for the last part, the go, the evacuation. One of the things that they talk about is when you get that evacuation order and you hear it, act early. Make sure that all your stuff is in order, that you've got the things you want to take with you, that everybody in your household knows where they're going and where to meet afterwards. Part of this go is also to have in place a plan for not only your pets, but any livestock that you might have. That might require that when you get the evacuation warning before the notice to evacuate, that you come up with that plan for the horses, the chickens, the goats, and you take them somewhere to be safe. Well, that's all I have for you for right now. Again, this is a condensed version of both Firewise and Ready, Set, Go. Here are the attached web addresses for any more information. Please contact me. I'd love to come back out and do more in depth or do more of these interactions. You can also contact your local fire jurisdiction and have them come out and do a Firewise assessment on your property. Now that we're all done, though, I want everybody to grab their cell phones out. We have a little quiz next, a little competition, see who remembered the most from this and the winner will get a small candy bar.